Hi friends, Mindy here. I have a little flip through for you today, but I wanted to share some ideas and some tips for working through some daily projects. I know a lot of us are doing Advent projects or, kind of month-long projects for December. We just came out of November, which was a really, really busy month for me personally. But I was also trying to do kind of a gratitude project. When I created this little journal with the scripture cards from Bythewell4God, I mentioned that I wanted to kind of incorporate like a daily gratitude process with that. And so I'm going to do a little flip through of how this kind of ended up. But like I said, November was super, super busy for us. We were out of town 3 different times during the month and just had a lot going on. And so I had to keep it simple. And so I wanted to just kind of give some of my tips for ways that I work through. I know that right now, I'm in a different season of life than I was, several years ago when I had 4 kids at home and then I was homeschooling and taking care of my mom and all those kinds of things. And so, understand the season that you're in. I understand that I'm in a different season now than I was. And so, kind of give yourself grace for the season that you're in. But as I flip through here, I'm just going to kind of go over some tips. I'm going to not necessarily share everything that's in here, but I did want to do a flip through because I did keep this really, really simple. So, and that is kind of my number one tip is when you're doing a daily project, if it's like an Advent, or if you're doing December daily, or maybe if you're a junk journaler, maybe you're going to do junk journal January, or any kind of, even a scripture writing plan, any kind of those kind of things. I feel like some of these tips can maybe be helpful. So my first one is definitely to keep it simple. It's just easy to get overwhelmed when you're trying to do all of the things, especially when you're trying to do all of those things on top of your regular Bible reading and prayer time and all those kinds of things. It's easy for it to get overwhelming. So keep it as simple as you possibly can and have a plan for what you're going to do and what you're going to use. If you can kind of narrow that down, that really just kind of helps even, kind of keep everything together, keep all your supplies together in one place, just really sort of helps with that. So, my plan was really for this month for these documented. I just wanted to document 3 or 4 things every day that I could just kind of put on here. I wasn't planning to do a lot of decorating on these cards. I was already working through the devotional for November as well. And so I was just doing this, kind of supplementing that. And so I also feel like it's a good idea to kind of have a backup plan. So just understand that you're going to have busy times or things are going to happen. So one of the things that I did for these cards in particular, because I knew we were traveling a lot, we just had a lot going on, is on days when I could not get to like actually putting the notes into this little book, I just had a stack of sticky notes, and I would just drop my 3 things down and I would just stick it to the card. And then when I had a few more minutes, I'd come back through and kind of just, write it out however I was going to do it and include it in my little journal. So kind of have a backup plan for those days when you're going to get busy or you're just overwhelmed. So as you can see, I just kept everything super, super simple. I created maybe some little tags here and there. I have like this one, for example, I just wrote directly on these cards. These cards were so beautiful that they really didn't need a lot. And I didn't have a lot of time to invest in just making 30 cards decorative. They were already decorated, so that just took the pressure off of that for me. So like here, I just have a little label sticker and I just wrote my little thankful things on there. And another idea is to kind of make sure you have the prep work done as much as you can ahead of time. So for me, one of those things that I had done before I kind of got started with this kit for November is the fussy cutting for all of the little images. I had sat down one night and just kind of did all of that. So I didn't have to do that even when I was working through the devotional kit this month, and when I was using these pieces, and I didn't have to do that when I was getting ready to add them into here. So, and just plan for there's going to be days when you're just too busy. So you just have to keep things super simple. They're just labels. Those are just super quick days for me. I did add a little bit of fabric here and there. This one is one that I just really loved the background. I didn't want to do a whole lot to it, so I just had a few things, and I wasn't necessarily writing my life story for my gratitude either. I think gratitude is a practice that we should have, every day. But I did want to just kind of make a concerted effort to do a little bit more documenting of that for this month. I just like to do that in November. And so, some of those days are silly things. Some of them, like, on this day, I wrote that I was thankful for coffee because on this day I was super busy and I was thankful for that. So, it didn't have to be like this, like really long thing. Of course, if you wanted to write out, a super long thing, you could certainly do that. I just knew that time constraints for me we're not going to be able to do that. So I also would say to sort of give yourself grace if you can't and don't finish on time. I had, a plan in place already. Like I said, I was doing little sticky notes on the back of each card if I didn't have time to work on it. So I knew that if I needed to come back to this after the month was over, I could do that. So make sure that the only time limits that we're really putting on here are the ones we kind of do for ourselves. And so just make sure that you're giving yourself the grace to do that and space to finish. You can always come back to it. And, if you need to, like when you're starting to work through here, kind of like pivot your plans if necessary. If you've started out and you're realizing this is just a little bit more involved than what I had intended, just stop what you're doing and simplify. And so that, because a completed project is better than one where, if you're taking all of the fun and all of the joy out of it, then it's kind of defeating the whole purpose. So give yourself permission to like change midstream and say, okay, I want to do something different. So like on this day, I used one of the ephemera pieces. I have just a little tag tucked back in there with my little thankful things. So that day, I maybe took 10 seconds more to glue this down than on other days. But also remember, this is a judgment-free zone. No one is judging you. A finished project is really better than a project that is abandoned or an unfinished perfect project. Or unfinished perfection. Just give yourself grace, and it's okay to kind of work in little time increments. So like one of the things that I did is after I had my devotional for this month finished, I took all of the pieces and I put them together and I put them with this little book so that I would have all of the things that I would need to continue on with this particular project. And everything was just right there. So I could just sit down and do it. So it's okay if you need to work on things in 5 to 10 minute stages. I understand that not everybody has a way. I know when my kids were little, I couldn't just leave things sitting out. That was just a bad idea. But if you can do that, it's okay to work, in 5-minute increments, 10-minute increments. Here, I really loved this scene. And so I just added a piece of the pattern paper in here, and because I was working in this disc binding system, I could just add this in, and so I have my actual gratitude things on here instead of on the card because I wanted to leave that scene. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Just, if you have 5 or 10 minutes, you'd be surprised during the day how much that can add up versus feeling like I have to sit down for an hour and get through this project. Sometimes that's just not feasible. So if you can, set yourself up for success as much as possible, especially with these longer projects, these like, especially if it's like a 30-day project or something like that, set yourself up for the success the best way that you can, and understand kind of how you work. If you know that you work best if you have a plan, makes everything, a plan. Also understand your time constraints too. So if you are, if you know that you're working in these 5 to 10 minute increments, then maybe busting out like the texture paste and all of those kinds of things, maybe that's not a good idea for that particular project. Maybe that's better for a day when you have more time. Don't feel like you have to kind of do that every single time, especially for these longer projects. Sometimes you can do that every day, sometimes you can't, and it's okay either way. So I really feel like we can get too hard on ourselves about some of those things. Sometimes just give yourself the room. And one of the things too is remember why you're doing this project. For me, I really wanted to just really focus in on documenting some things that I was grateful for this month. Again, I believe gratitude is a practice we should have all year long, but I really like to just focus that in November, especially. Just feel like that gets me in the right frame of mind for the rest of the holiday season. And so, remembering why I'm doing that, I'm not working to create a work of art. I'm really documenting things that I'm grateful for. That was the main focus of this. It wasn't to create, this beautiful art book. I had my journal that I was working for through my devotional, and so I was able to do more creatively there. This was really just a simple way to document the things that I was grateful for this month. And so remembering the why of what you're doing really helps you stay focused on what you're doing and not on the outcome of creating this big beautiful thing. Just to stay focused on why you're doing what you're doing, because you want to be able to do it with joy and continue to have joy in the process. You don't want to feel kind of bogged down in trying to keep up with everything. So and if you can steal away for a few minutes, if you have more time one day, and that's okay. But just, remember that it's okay to work this the way that it works for you. And that looks different for everybody. And it looks different maybe from month to month for everybody. It may look different in different seasons. Life is just life. And we kind of have to work with it. But maybe some of these tips will help. I'm sorry, I'm a big hand talker, so I'm sorry. Anyway, this was a journaling card here that I just added my grateful things on there. But, everybody kind of works through these things differently, and we just have different times. Like a lot of what I do, I end up working kind of late at night. That's just when it works best for me with my family situations and everything. So just kind of understand that about yourself. And then I just wrote this little give thanks card here at the back on one of the cards. That was the extra card. But so it was a really, really simple project. And I would also suggest, can't remember if I mentioned this, but do as much ahead of time as you can. It really will help your process. So for example, for my Advent process with Bythewell4God, my project, if you've seen my setup for my journal, I went ahead and I created all of the envelopes. I actually have already gone through and I put my little scripture cards in there. Let me pull it out so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So I created this journal. This was in a recent video, and I created it so that it has these little pockets. And so one of the things that I did ahead of time, I'm going to be starting this December 1st, is I have all of the days, these cards, the scripture cards, already tucked inside each one of these days. I also went through, and the journaling cards this month that have they have the little hymn on there, the like Christmas Carol or the hymn. These are the journaling cards that you could get with the kit. I went ahead and already pulled those out and stuck them in with the day that they coordinate with, so that when I go for this day, I may decorate, the front of the envelope, and then I will add my flashcards, my scriptures, and all that kind of stuff to this little envelope, and it will be done. So the most that I could do ahead of time, what I felt like I could do ahead of time, I have already done. So it just helps me to kind of have some of those processes in place and have a plan. I already kind of know how I want to work each one of those envelopes. I kind of know what's going to go in them, and I know how, like, I'm going to put little die cuts on the back for the closures, and all those kinds of things are already kind of in place in my head. So some of those kinds of things, if you can do them ahead of time, really set you up for the most success, and just a lot less pressure too. So even if you're trying to do a process, if it's okay to kind of have a formula. I'm going to put a title here and a this here and a that there and call it good. That just helps you be more successful. It just helps you get through things faster. It takes away that kind of feeling like you have to reinvent the wheel every time you're, come to a new day or whatever. So anyway, I just really wanted to share this little flip through, but like I said, I knew there wasn't really a lot of artwork that I had done on here. I was really just documenting my gratitude for the month of November, but I do get questions a lot about the amount of projects and stuff that I do. And I'm going to be in December, like I said, I have Defember Ember, which I'm going to be doing, which is a process where you are just creating an ephemera in the month of December. I also have my Advent. I have some other things that I'm doing in December. So really trying to keep all of that organized and kind of setting myself up for success ahead of time is just something that has been really helpful to me as I'm doing these kind of bigger projects. So I hope that you found this video helpful. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And until next time, bye.